Ha, ha. Welcome to the Avocado Gamescast Halloween Spooktacular. I'm Merve, the vessel of eldritch horror, who brings you this ludological Necronomicon. Tonight we'll be talking about the Nintendo Switch and our scariest gaming experiences. But first, let's meet the minions of Satan who are joining me. First up, she's the ghost of controllers past. It's Flaxon Jackson.
Hi.
Next, he's the poltergeist. He's turning all your favorite anime series into harem shows. It's Lutair.
Hi.
She haunts the industrial building in northern Singapore that bears her name. It's Admirax.
Yeah, if you guys want to talk about the rent there, please contact me. I need some tenants.
And finally, it might always be sunny in Philadelphia, but it's always dark and gloomy when he's around. It's TheKappa.
Ooh. I got into it. You guys just threw hello shit. I don't.
That was a great greeting. So I'm going to drop that voice now. Because if I had to do that for the whole thing, I think I would drive myself nuts. It's nice to have a whole bunch of new faces here today, and so that we can get acquainted with everyone, why don't we start by sharing what we're playing at the moment? Lutair, what have you been playing recently?
Let's see. I've been playing a lot of Civ 6. I got it not too long ago. I'm actually really happy with it. There's a lot of really interesting changes that they made. There's definitely some UI issues though, like when you hover over certain things, it doesn't show it right away and things like that. But I think it's probably one of the smoothest Civ launches I've seen so far.
Yeah, I've heard that the last one wasn't, like, Beyond Earth or whatever it was called, wasn't super smooth.
I kind of just completely avoided it. I was like, oh, that might look good, and then it just didn't look good on launch, so I just ignored it.
They got ambitious with Beyond Earth. They tried to do like a tie-in with like a Starships game and a bunch of other stuff, but the gameplay itself, the core gameplay, just wasn't there. The best thing they did though was kind of implement really good mod support on Steam to make it so that modders more or less could fix the game as each little expansion came out that more or less made it playable. But I still Civ 5 wasn't good until the last expansion, right? Does everybody kind of?
I only played Civ 4 after I played Civ 5, so it was like there wasn't a lot for me to miss on Civ 5. But yeah, it definitely was much better by the second expansion.
I've been playing a little bit of it too. I've been on a roll with a bunch of stuff, but I agree with you on the UI, man. It is rough. Little things like you go to open the city production panel, and then I don't know how you leave that production panel besides hitting escape to go to the like the escape menu, and then hitting escape to go resume game. It's just little things. There's not a lot of pop-ups. It's hard to tell what your units are working on. The victory conditions are a lot more nebulous in a lot of ways. I don't know if you've noticed that as well. I mean, domination, obviously, but the culture stuff really doesn't click for me in a lot of ways that it did in Civ 4 and 5 for a culture victory. So yeah, I've been sharing some of those frustrations. I don't know who else has been playing it, but how do you feel about the districts?
Personally, I think they're actually a really good addition. Like they definitely have changed up the way I build cities, the way I think about wonders too. Because I used to be, get a wonder, get every wonder, I don't care if I'm not going for that victory condition, get that wonder. But now it's like, if I have a small city with not much space to put stuff, do I really want to like get rid of all of my production for like 6 wonders?
Yeah, and it encourages expansion because you need a lot of all the tiles, right? Like you need a rainforest, you need a desert, you need a tundra, like to build all the stuff now. I feel like the more I play it, the more I'll understand about what my city placement looks like. But yeah, it requires tons more planning to get a city where you need it to be. I'm okay with districts now. I hated it at first. I'm okay with it now. It's annoying to plow over your worker improvements, especially now how they reworked workers to be completely
expendable.
Stupid. I hate it. So they reworked workers on top of that. So now you're plowing over your own improvements to stick up that commercial center that just has to be in that one tile.
So is it a little bit more fiddly than previous installments of the series?
I'd say so. I think a lot of it will get ironed out. As a huge Civ player, there's some fundamental changes in this one that aren't just like like Civ 5 was mostly, look wise, a lot more paint over and polish than just rebuilding the whole thing from what Civ 4 was. But Civ 5 feels very different in a lot of ways. The military units you've got armies and corps and things like that now. Technological advantages don't seem like they carry us through late game as they used to. The game more or less stops with the modern era.
I think it's like 2040 is like the standard cap.
Yeah, and like tech-wise, you don't get like the crazy units you used to get in Civ 5 at Endgame, where we were fighting with like giant mechs and like future tech and things like that.
Yeah,
that seems like they're taking out the fun. Giant mechs are the fun part.
But I was playing a domination game, and by the time I got to the end, I realized that we're still using like modern tanks and helicopters and machine guns, where like an Endgame usually in domination Civ 5 would be like lobbing mechs at each other from across the planet using orbital drops and shit like that. So
I thought it'd be like nuking like civilizations fighting with spears using satellite.
Especially because the tech differences in Civ, right? Like if you get that one civilization that never really expanded, never really focused on tech, you can still stomp them out. But it never gets to that real future tech end game. I've got a lot of mixed feelings on that one.
Yeah, I've never like in Civ 5. I very rarely got to future like tech for domination victories. Pretty much only for science victories, and then someone would try and kill me, and they would just die.
Last thing I'll bring up about this one, because I've been curious about. I've been waiting to talk Civ 6 for a while, and I knew we were going to do it on the podcast, so I've been holding back. The spy, the espionage shit. Do you understand it at all, or am I just too stupid to figure out? I can't stop them from stealing tech at all. I'll get a big tech advantage, and Saladin will just show up and just steal nuclear fission, like the turn after I research it. I'm like, what the hell? And I've got an era advantage on him. So I don't understand how you there used to be that little meter in Civ 5 where it comes to espionage, like how protected your city is and things like that.
Yeah, that seems a lot more obfuscated in this. Like, you can put a spy and counter spy mode, so you put him in the city if you like.
Well, you put him in the district too, right? So
yeah, the district isn't as useful because if they're in your district, they're trying to fuck that district up.
Right.
They're trying to ruin the district. And that happened to me while I was building a wonder twice in a row, actually.
Yeah.
Two of my
thing. And I was like, whoa, I should really try to stop this from happening, but I have no idea how to do that. I looked at the little in-game tutorial, and it was like, oh, you can do counter-espionage. Okay, next paragraph. I was like, oh, all right, so.
It doesn't even tell you how to do it?
Not really. I mean, the Civipedia is very neutered this time around when it comes to, concepts. It does a good job of explaining the units and the buildings and stuff like that, but conceptually, yeah, it's not where it needs to be.
I think it's because. Oh, sorry. Go.
I was gonna say the lack of documentation in modern video games is probably one of my least favorite trends in the video game industry. There are no more manuals. Now you have to figure out how to do everything yourself, and half the time they don't even tell you how to do it.
It's interesting for Civ 6 because it came out as if it were a game with 2 expansions. It's not as fully developed because they didn't have the time that they would spend making a game and then making an expansion, making a second expansion. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of the thin threading on the game of Civ, is because it's not necessarily rushed. It's just a lot at once.
That's a great way to put it.
So that's Civ. That's what Kappa and Lutair have been playing. Admirax, what have you been up to in the world of gaming?
I have been I've been chipping away at that Batman Telltale game, and I was really excited for it because I am a big Batman fan, and I enjoyed the Walking Dead Telltale game. But I gotta say, I think that this kind of style of gaming that Telltale has developed might be wearing a little thin.
Yeah. Frequent discussion point.
Oh yeah,
on the podcast before. Do you feel that their style works well in the Batman setting, or is it more suited?
It works. Honestly, it actually kind of works better during the Bruce Wayne segments of the game, like when kind of part of the plot is that you're trying to get Harvey Dent elected mayor for some reason.
That doesn't seem right.
No, it doesn't.
This is pre-Two-Face, or?
Yeah, this is pre-Two-Face, and
Okay.
it's hysterical because Harvey Dent is built like a linebacker. He's got shoulders about 4 feet wide. And so you're trying to like deal with the mob and kind of get Vicky Vale off your back because she's trying to write an expose. So those segments of the game are actually kind of fun and interesting. And then when you're Batman, it's kind of just disappointing. And maybe it's just because I'm kind of tired of the quick event style of combat that they do. But yeah, it definitely doesn't compare to, say, the Arkham series of games as far as
as far as combat
being
goes.
Batman's actually kind of fun.
It's interesting you say that the Bruce Wayne part is more fun. Because I think that's more situated to like a Telltale style, right? Like, more conversations. When I heard they were making a Batman game, I just thought, there's a pretty strong precedent out there for Batman games right now where it's engaging combat and, interesting combos and, hot, really good-looking graphics and things like that. I don't know if people were looking for what Telltale was going to do with the Batman treatment, so it just seemed like a odd property, but I think Telltale has never heard no to a license, or never said no to a license.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Batman, fuck it, sure.
When they first announced it, I was kind of excited because I feel like the Batman games that have been coming out the past few years haven't explored the detective aspect of Batman. And, he's supposed to be the world's greatest detective. And so I feel like Telltale had the opportunity to kind of make it more like, even like an LA Noire kind of game where you had the ability to be a detective and kind of solve crimes, but I think they pooped the bed a little bit on it.
Did you ever play The Wolf Among Us?
I didn't play that one, no.
Okay.
I played Walking Dead and the Game of Thrones one.
Yeah, it's hard to make a suggestion, especially if you get burned out on a Telltale, but it sounds like that might be a little more what you're looking for. There's a very noir feel to that as you go around and kind of solve crimes as a detective in a fantasy setting, but I've got a lot of issues with the way Telltale kind of handles things like choices and gameplay moments, and it all kind of feels very, I don't know, like
it can feel a little artificial, to be sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like The Wolf Among Us, but then I think the formula is sort of played out. So by the time I got around to The Walking Dead season 2, I was really burned out in the Telltale formula, and I ended up kind of hating it by the end. I think they really need to revamp their formula a little bit.
Yeah, the person I'm playing this game with has never played a Telltale game before, so every time it says Harvey Dent will remember that, he freaks out. He's like, "Oh my God, what did I do wrong?" Like,
and you're like, "Don't worry, it's not going to matter at all."
Yeah, it doesn't change anything at all.
Yeah, that was a blow the first time I finished The Walking Dead, and I realized, I started talking with my friends, and there were some story deviations and things. But when we both had that character, there was the optional character to save the girl who's the reporter with the gun, or the guy who was like an IT guy. And when
Lily or Carly, one of those two.
Yeah. And when we both got, me and my friend who were playing it, not at, parallel, we both got to the same point, and I said, "Oh yeah, this really weird thing happened with the reporter that I saved." And he said, "Yeah, this really weird thing happened with the IT guy that I saved." And we started talking about it, and it was like, "Oh man," it was just such a letdown. Like,
oh
yeah, that didn't matter at all. They got me. So I know the internet has had huge pushbacks to stuff like the Mass Effect 3 ending. Like, does choice really matter? And that's always kind of one of the big things with like Skyrim games or Elder Scroll games, I should say. And I really feel Telltale needs to start getting some of that criticism because, man, who cares? If none of those choices matter, why are you bothering me that, Harvey Dent will remember this or whatever?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, in Telltale's defense, it would be an absurd amount of dev time to make, a real choice tree that would actually affect how the game plays out.
Well, when that's the core of your business or your what your studio does. I mean, think about like Dragon Age. Like the way they handle like the Dragon Age keep for example. Like by the time you get to Inquisition, there's 2 huge games or 2.5 huge games worth of decisions that they have to fit into Inquisition, and they manage it pretty well, right? I mean, Mass Effect kind of does the same thing. I think I think they could step it up. I mean,
Mass Effect doesn't do it quite as well as Dragon Age did with Dragon Age Keep. The Mass Effect, they had that comic book series that you had to purchase. And then it didn't really offer you a complete array of decisions to carry through the games.
Yeah, I think on PC you can just carry your saves over, but if you're playing across platforms, you need to do the whole comic
Yeah,
book thing.
if you want to stop in or start in on Mass Effect 3 and then you don't already have your 1 and 2 saves in, then that's what you have to do.
Yeah, I like what Telltale does. What you were saying about Batman is interesting. I might pick it up just to play as Bruce Wayne because that's a really unexplored territory when it comes to Batman. So that part sounds interesting.
Yeah, and I won't spoil it, but they do some stuff with the Wayne family that I can't remember a Batman property having explored before.
Are you a big Batman fan or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Any Court of Owl stuff? You don't have to spoil it for me, but that's my favorite Batman stuff.
Oh, I haven't. I don't think I've gotten deep enough into the game yet. If they do that, I haven't encountered it yet. If they do.
Okay.
All right, so that's what Admirax has been playing. Flaxon Jackson, what have you been playing?
Well, I warned you, I am not really up on my video games lately. I haven't been playing much. So I am still on Fallout 4.
Nice.
I'm getting to the end of the main quest, so kind of what I'm doing is just wrapping up all the little side quests before I finish it out. And then after that, I want to get the Far Harbor and Nuka-Cola DLCs. So that's basically where I'm at right now. I'm a little behind on the times.
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm super behind on the times as well. I'm playing games from like February this year.
And if you could pick one to kind of take your time with, it'd be that one, honestly, in my opinion. I finished it and probably about a month ago now, and it was such a good experience. I mean, the two DLCs that you're talking about are great. I kind of envy people going and experience that stuff for the first time.
Yeah, see, my boyfriend and I play on different systems right now, so I've watched him do some playthroughs on both those DLCs, and he was a big fan of both, so I am looking forward to them. I just need to download them and finish out my game here.
What system are you on?
PC.
Oh, okay. Well, there's always mods, so if you ever want to mod it up, let me know.
I do that sometimes. I haven't done a ton of them because they're kind of a pain in the ass, but yeah, I did some mods on my Dragon Age games.
Yeah. I played New Vegas unmodded, and people think that's scary for some reason.
I always do a first playthrough with no mods, just to experience it, and then I go back and go nuts.
Yeah, that makes sense. I kind of want to experience the game as it was intended to begin with, and then I'll do the crazy shit.
Yeah, that's my exact idea too. And then there's just something about the Macho Man Dragon and the Thomas the Tank Engine. It's
really takes you out of the story.
Yeah. I try not to do the cheat stuff though. I try to do a lot more stuff that makes the game more difficult. But Fallout especially, even if you don't mod it, there's just visual stuff that you can kind of do to help some of this stuff because that engine is showing its age a little bit. But man, what a great game.
It is, but I think I've mentioned this on the Avocado before. After playing Fallout 3, there was such hype about Fallout 4 and such expectation, and I felt a little let down by it, by how similar it was to Fallout 3. Like, I didn't feel like there was any big revelation in playing Fallout 4. Like, it's just like, all right, this is a Fallout game. It's fun.
That's true.
Yeah, it's Fallout 3 on the other coast, basically.
Yeah. It's tighter, but it's not like a big change.
There are improvements, no doubt, but yeah, I wasn't blown away or anything.
Yeah, as much as I do love and try to stick up for, like the Fallout, and I think that there are some things that they can do to kind of take that next step too. I'm wondering if it's going to be an Elder Scrolls game that they're going to make a lot of big changes for. I mean, engine's one thing, but there does need to be a better way, I think, to handle the quests, and I think they're getting towards it. But it's obviously not the solution to Fallout 4, where every time somebody sees you, they just run up to you with a quest. As that is annoying. But yeah, I think they're getting there, and it's good to me when I see them kind of making steps, but there's a lot of Fallout that I don't enjoy, but I just love the world, the atmosphere. Big Fallout fan.
Yeah. So we've got Flaxon playing Fallout, Lutair and TheKappa playing Civ, Admirax playing. What did you say? You're playing Telltale Batman.
Telltale Batman.
Wow, my short-term memory is already dying. We're playing games right now. Playing lots of games. More games are going to come out in the future. New systems are going to come out in the future, specifically the Nintendo Switch. So that was revealed on October 20th this year. It was codenamed the NX before, and Nintendo finally did their big reveal trailer on October the 20th. Turns out that the Nintendo Switch is, as suspected, a portable/home console hybrid. Do you guys see yourself using this at all? You guys interested in it?
I need to know price first before I can tell you if I'm interested.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say pretty much unequivocally yes. Yeah. Because I didn't get a DS or a 3DS because I don't really want a completely portable system, but I do like the idea of having a system I can take places. So I think this is exactly the kind of thing that I would want. Like, it looks cool as long as it has, solid graphics, and I don't need too much from Nintendo. Like, they have fun games with like cell shaded graphics on occasion. So I'm actually really excited for the Switch.
I'm gonna say unequivocally no. So I'm gonna go opposite on you.
All right.
I have a 3DS, and I also have an NVIDIA Shield, and I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm too hardcore or whatever of a gamer, but I feel like Nintendo's kind of passed me by in a lot of their flagship titles. I enjoyed Galaxy okay, but I don't know, it all felt kind of like, okay, I've done this a lot of times. I've collected a lot of coins. I've thrown a lot of fireballs. Zelda doesn't do anything for me. Metroid kind of, but it feels like Metroid's like the forgotten stepdaughter of Nintendo in a lot of ways. So unless they start really telling me that, yeah, you're going to get first party along with a lot of third party support, I don't see myself being into it. I'm interested in the hardware under the hood, of course, but seeing where Xbox is going with 4K gaming, seeing where PS4 is going with a lot of their exclusives kind of, I would say, being a tier above Xbox in a lot of ways, and of course having a gaming PC, I just don't see a spot for what would really just be a Mario, Zelda, whatever else, system in my house.
Well, yeah, in the trailer they showed an Elder Scrolls clip, didn't they?
Yeah.
So I mean, if I see games like that on there, I might be more inclined to say yes. Otherwise, for the games they offer, I like the concept of it. I don't know that I would buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really going to come down to a price thing for me. I'm probably not going to get it at launch. I'll get it a few months or a year down the road. I mean, but I already own a gaming PC. I already own a PlayStation 4. It's really just going to be a Nintendo machine for me. And it really just boils down to, are there enough really amazing Nintendo games for me to want to get this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't see myself buying this either unless they do something. And I think what Nintendo's strength used to be is that they did stuff that you couldn't do on other platforms. Like the Wii especially was such a great and unique piece of equipment, but I think they've really dropped the ball with just being so insular with their own properties and not letting a lot of other companies make games for their hardware, that I think unless they really open up to other companies making games for their hardware, I can't see myself getting one. Because, yeah, like you were saying, I don't care about Zelda anymore. I don't really care about Mario or Sonic or any of that sort of thing. I just don't have the energy. I don't have the time.
I'm not even sure that Sega cares about Sonic anymore.
I mean, the point you make about insular is a really good one, because I haven't had a Nintendo since a Wii, and even that was kind of like something that I really saw, okay, this is just a gimmick, right? and didn't really get into. And that Zelda game on Wii was probably one of the worst Zelda games I've ever played. So I've missed a whole generation now of Zelda and Mario and all this other stuff or whatever was on the Wii U. So I can't play that on my PC. I can't play that on my PS4. I can't kind of get back into that world on anything but a Nintendo device. So once I'm out, I'm kind of out. I don't have that same itch. There's really good platformers being made every day for PC. There's, like look at like Super Meat Boy or something, just as an example.
Yeah. Well, good 2D platformers for sure. But there's a dearth of 3D platformers, I'd say, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, like things like Rayman, they make, well, that's not a true 3D. That's like a 2.5. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There's not really a lot going on in that space, but I don't know if that itch is enough for me to go out and buy a whole console over in a lot of ways. And the Insular Point is one that I think really stands for me too.
Yeah, there are a lot of the 3D platformers coming to PC though in the future. Like Psychonauts 2 is going to be on PC, Hat in Time, Lobo Destroyo, all those games are all going to be on PC. So I'm really happy for that. And if Nintendo isn't the one who's solely capitalizing on that genre, which would be the sole reason I get a Nintendo console, then maybe I don't really need one.
Wait, I know I've talked about this with you before, but think about if Nintendo went third party and said, look, we're getting out of the hardware business and we're gonna port Mario, whatever the new Zelda is, whatever the new whatever is, to PS4, Xbox, and PC. Do they make more or less money? I mean, what do you think?
My guess is if they port to PS4 and Xbox, they make less money. If they port to PC, they probably make more money. And I don't actually know anything about business, but the reason I'm going to guess this is because I'm willing to bet that there will be Nintendo owners who use the PC as sort of a second platform.
Right.
Or if there might be Nintendo owners who just don't game on PC. Like they have a PS4, but they don't have a gaming PC. And for them, either you're making Nintendo games accessible to people who don't own Nintendo consoles, or you're putting Nintendo games on a platform that Nintendo owners don't necessarily already have. Whereas if you put it on PS4 or Xbox, maybe that's overlapping with what people already have. They're not going to go out and buy Nintendo hardware.
Right. And here's what I'm thinking. Just go with me on this craziness for a second. Just say Nintendo's like, we're done with consoles. Here we go. We're going to sell a Nintendo branded emulator, because that's what it really would be, right? On the Windows Store or on Steam or whatever you want to do with it. You download the emulator and then you pay $1.99 to rebuy Super Mario Bros. 3. How many people who just, not even a gaming computer, I mean just your average laptop can run all that stuff through emulation, right? So how many people do you think just say, oh, you know what, I might as well pick up a couple of that, and those $2 sales start to really add up. But right now, if you want anything from Nintendo, you've got to do it from in their own little walled garden of their console that, do people want to pull a trigger on every 3 years, it seems like, when Nintendo finally gets a new gimmick they want to go with?
Well, I'm shocked that Nintendo hasn't licensed their properties out to the mobile market yet, because I can see, just look at how,
they just started, kind of.
Yeah, but I'm just shocked that you can't play, say, Pokemon Blue on your iPhone.
You definitely can, but maybe not legally.
Yeah, in a legal sense, I mean.
Yeah, it's a market out there, right? Like, look how many people now download, or you remember when we like the Wild West of the internet, when everyone was downloading music for illegally, and then they made downloading music easy, and people were like, well, you know what? I'm not going to do all the illegal stuff. I'll just go through iTunes, right? I think the same market's there for Nintendo. People emulate. If I wanted to play Mario right now, that's what I do, is go download a ROM and play it.
Yeah, people emulate all the time.
Right.
Funny story. One time a few years ago, I was sitting in the back of a class that I was TAing, and there's some student who was sitting a few rows in front of me, was not paying attention to the lecture. He had his MacBook open. He was playing Super Mario 64 on his laptop during the lecture.
Wait, with the keyboard?
Yeah, with a keyboard and a trackpad.
He must have been getting punished by somebody. It's horrible.
Yeah, so if emulation is clearly something people want.
I've been playing a sort of hacked version of Emerald recently that they changed the types of the Pokemon and the movesets of each Pokemon and the locations of each Pokemon. So your starters are like Mudkip, Bulbasaur and Abra.
Oh, what?
Abra is ice type and learns Ice Beam, and Mudkip is fire water. It's really cool, and there's a competing market for cell phone GBA emulators. Like there's like 3 or 4 different ones that I can find on the store. So like there's definitely people who want to do this, and I think Nintendo just sort of needs to see that and take advantage of it, because I would buy a like $4 GBA emulator from Nintendo itself, especially if it had like support and stuff.
Mm-hmm. I just think about all that potential if Nintendo licenses hit different platforms with different developers, maybe even then getting outside of that Nintendo house. There's a whole. It feels like Nintendo's kind of holding themselves back in a lot of ways. And
yeah. So to play devil's advocate here a little bit, I think the reason Nintendo doesn't do it is because they see it as something they could do, but it'd be a one-time injection of cash. They put out the emulator, all the big Nintendo fans go out and buy the games. That happens for 1 quarter. Next quarter they don't make any money off of it because everybody's already bought the games.
Well, to play devil's advocate, I'm just okay. My wife, very very casual gamer. I can't tell you how many times she's bought Mario on different platforms. We have it for DS, we have it for 3DS, we have it for Wii, we have it for we have the emulator. I mean, we just have all those copies of Mario. I think there's always going to be a small group of people like that who are just for nostalgia's sake or whatever, just want to jump in. Mobile, another great example. Just want to jump in, play some Mario, play maybe a Zelda, something like that, and then move on. It's money that I wouldn't, if I was a company, I wouldn't turn away. I mean, right now, if I want to play an EA game, for example, like there's 10 different ways I can go get it. I can play it on all these different systems. They'll have a tie-in app on mobile. They'll have, all these second screen experiences and augmented realities and stuff like that. People are trying to get their games in front of your face everywhere, because they're big money and they're big business and they're like blockbuster movies now. Whereas Nintendo, to me, feels like the exact opposite. It's like like Independence Day 3 came out and they're like, we're only showing this at Regal Cinemas. People are like, why? Like, we all want to see this movie. Maybe not, but
the key thing here is that right now, if you want to buy a Nintendo game, you have to buy it on their system. But you're going to buy it once in DS, once in 3DS, once in the Wii, once in the Wii U. They get that sale over and over and over again. If you buy it once through emulation on PC, you bought it, you own it. They're never going to get a sale for you on that game.
Yeah, that's true.
So this is a clever way for them to make you buy the same shit over and over and over again.
You think it's entirely a financial decision? There's no philosophical impetus behind why they do that?
I mean, I think there's definitely a philosophical ideological reason for them to, especially staying out of the mobile market for as long as they did. Like, until I think it was Puzzles and Dragons, they had completely sort of stayed away and from the mobile market, and they really didn't want to get into it. They were very reluctant, and now that Nintendo Go or Pokemon Go has been so successful, sort of.
Is anybody still playing Pokemon Go?
I think my mom just started playing it, so.
Yeah, people still play it. I think no one's nearly as into it as it was at the start, because everyone sort of
for 3 weeks it was all anybody talked about.
Yeah,
it had the same problem every other Pokemon game had, where it's just the same thing over and over and over again.
Well, the game actually crapped out on my phone. Like, I can't get it to work anymore, and
oh no,
something I don't know. Did they do beta testing or something?
I think you were the beta test.
Oh shit!
Me, my icon stopped working, but if I went to apps and then to Pokemon Go, it worked again. I don't know. They did updates, and there's like a Halloween update where you get more candy and there's more ghost Pokemon around.
What? They have more ghost Pokemon? All right, I'm downloading.
Well, just you're more likely to find Haunters and Ghastlies.
Did they ever go? I stopped playing after a week. Did they ever go to second generation Pokemon?
No, not yet. They're still the original 151. I don't even think the birds have been released yet.
So
Like, they've been...
no Articuno?
Moltres.
Yeah, no Articuno, Moltres, or Zapdos.
What was weird about me was my experience with Pokemon Go was so different from everybody else's because I live in the middle of nowhere, and people would show these screenshots with like 50 Pokemon on their screen. I'm like, man, this looks nothing. Like mine was just like a shitty GPS of my road with nothing on it. And like, me and my kid tried to play it, so we went for a walk, probably a good, mile around my neighborhood, which for, a kid is about what would be expected, I would think, for them to walk. And we found one, which is the exact same number I found in my house. So this game is not for me. But yeah, everybody else's experiences were drastically different, I think.
I didn't actually see that many people playing it.
Really?
I think I saw a grand total of one person playing it. I saw this woman in the park. I was running in the park, and I saw a woman run straight into a bush with a phone in her hand. And
you wrote me a water.
I'm assuming she was playing Pokemon Go, because I don't know what else would be in that bush. Otherwise, I hadn't seen people playing the game anywhere.
I heard more people bitching about people playing Pokemon Go.
Yeah, that's true of so many things.
Yeah.
I live in a small town, and I tried to go to a gym, and so I'm following it, and it's in this. The gym is at a water tower that's surrounded by this empty parking lot. So I go over to the gym. There's a car parked in the middle of the parking lot with one sketchy dude sitting on top of his car, just staring at his phone and
I think you
presumably
walked into a drug
defending.
deal.
I know, and so I'm like, no, I'm not gonna mess around with the kids. You know what? We'll just let them have that one.
I feel like that guy's actually like a corporate lawyer as his day job. They just like scruffed up to scare people off from the gym.
Yeah. It's like, if I start something, he's gonna know exactly who I am, and he's gonna come after me.
I had a really unique start to Pokemon Go because I was in South Africa when it launched. So I started playing there, and I was in a hotel because of don't live there, and then going to work every day. And by the hotel there were a lot of Pokestops and gyms and stuff. And then at work there was like one that you could walk to like 3 blocks away. And so I got like a little bit of the rural and a little bit of the city. And then I went on vacation for a week in England and went to like different cities every day. And that was awesome. Like there were like a bunch of tourists and a bunch of locals playing Pokemon Go, and I would like get to a lure module that someone had put up, and there were like 4 people standing around on their phones, and I'm just like, Pokemon Go, and they're like, Pokemon Go. So I like that it happened when I was on vacation and stuff, but like I definitely have stopped playing it nearly as much because I live out in like the middle of a neighborhood, so the closest Pokestop is a couple blocks away, and like I get like maybe a couple Pokemon a day, and it's way less than I did when I was in the cities of like in like friggin' London and stuff.
It's so hard for me to relate to that. Mine is much closer to the water tower experience.
Just like someone standing at the water tower and just just on the water tower. This is my gym.
I live right above a restaurant with a lure in it, and they were one of those restaurants that kind of got smart and would just buy whatever
the lure modules.
The lure modules. They would buy them like every hour just to get people to come to the restaurant. So all I would have to do to catch Pokemon is just sit in my apartment and just fling.
Like,
and I mean, I caught probably 500 Zubats.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So maybe that's why I got bored with it so quickly.
Yeah, apparently I think there are like certain Pokemon that don't even show up on certain continents. Like Mr. Mime is in Europe or something. Mm-hmm. I don't know. There's a lot of talk about where everything is.
Has anybody caught them all yet?
Yes, yeah. And he tried to sell them for a lot of money. I forget there was a
sell his account or his phone. How does he do that?
I think he caught them all, and I forget how much money. I have to Google this now.
I do know somebody caught them all, and I also know, because I'm involved in many of the cheating communities, that there was a really easy way to spoof your phone GPS that a lot of people were doing around release, and you could just basically spoof your phone was moving. You could collect 100 in 10 minutes if you were doing that.
I did love the one where it was somebody put their phone on their ceiling fan overnight, and we get like 10,000 steps all night.
It's weird because I know we've talked about this before, but like with friend codes and Street Pass and all that sort of stuff, it's like Nintendo develops, or not even just Nintendo, but even I guess Niantic. There's a lot of games that are developed for people that I'll never get to experience the full thing of it because they has all those urban planning ideas behind it.
Yeah, so they're built for the Japanese market, and Japan is generally more densely populated than the United States or Canada.
Could you imagine like just riding like the Tokyo subway home every day? How many street passes you would get in a DS? It'd probably fill you up.
Too many.
Yeah.
If anything.
So yeah, I mean, back to the Switch. I mean, it's interesting. I want to see more of the marketing. I want to see more of what's inside. I want to see that Nintendo's kind of learned a few lessons. I've heard they're partnering with Nvidia, which I think is good news. Because I having to pick a side with PC, I tend to agree or tend to side more with Nvidia over AMD.
Yeah.
AMD has the chips for the other two major consoles.
Yes. And they're getting better on PC, but the problem I've always had with AMD is their support and drivers are really hit and miss. Nvidia's kind of got that down to a science. You'll get drivers that'll break things, don't get me wrong, but they've gotten much better, I think, than in my opinion. But that's very fanboy territory, so
my AMD experience was that the software was fine. I had no problem with the drivers. It's the hardware that crapped on me. My card burned up.
Wow.
Yeah.
That might be a big deal.
Not ideal.
So I bought an Nvidia card, and I've been happy with it ever since.
I'm guessing they're holding back a lot of stuff so that people don't just not buy anything for the Wii U this Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's why they're leaving the details till January 12th.
Because it feels like it would, at least for me, compete with both the Wii U and the 3DS, which are their big sales for Christmas. So
yeah, I mean the 3DS is a money printing machine at this point. I remember looking at the handheld sales numbers, and it's just like the market share for 3DS right now is like 93% or something ridiculous.
Holy shit!
Yeah, I mean when you're just talking handhelds. Really? It's huge. I mean, that might just be for like a month or for something like that, for example. But I know that the 3DS is outselling I guess the Vita.
Yeah.
It's really.
I only know one person who owns a Vita, and he plays like erotic games on it.
It's like his spank device. I'm taking the Vita to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Yeah, needless to say, I don't borrow his Vita.
Wasn't the Vita that console that was marketed with the horrible ad with the woman who had breasts on the back and the front?
Yeah, and it said something like experience the same feel on the back and the front, or something. Enjoy the back and the front, or something like that.
Oh God!
Yeah,
it's one of those things that just makes you say, "Oh my God!"
Yeah,
fire your marketing person immediately.
In the writer's room, the editor's room, like the boss's room, there were no women at all.
I don't know if it's going to cannibalize 3DS sales. I gotta imagine it's gonna, as people wait to see more. But man, 3DS has kind of developed a nice little spot in my gaming world. Mostly for JRPGs and stuff like that. But I don't know. I mean, it's going to take a lot more and a really nice price point to make me kind of move on over to the Switch. Switch to the Switch.
Switch to the Switch. I think in terms of marketing, they've done a really good job of in that release trailer or whatever announcement trailer, I guess. They did a really good job of showing exactly what they needed to show. Like they show examples of all of the questions that you would have. Like, can I take this out of my house, or is it like the Wii U where it's attached to my Wi-Fi or the device itself? Can I do this? Does it connect to another one, which it does, and all of these things. Like basically, as I was watching it, I remember being like, well, does it do this? And then like 2 scenes later, they were doing that, and I'm like, oh, okay.
I haven't seen this hardware-wise. Is there like an equivalent of like an LTE version at all for the Switch that's going to use mobile data?
I don't think they've announced very much besides just like the concept.
because that was one thing I was thinking. I mean, if you're gonna have a true tablet these days, right? It's gonna need to be LTE. Um, if you're just taking it with you on a road trip or whatever, and you're trying to use a lot of that connectable
I think
stuff.
the way they're gonna do it is they'll probably allow you to connect it up to your phone and use your phone's service or something like that. I mean, you can make on most modern smartphones, you can turn your phone into a mobile hotspot.
Yeah, so you're talking about like a tethering system, where like your phone's the hotspot.
So they'll probably find a more sophisticated way of tethering your console to your phone.
Yeah.
Does the 3DS have any LTE stuff, or is it just okay?
Just Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Wi-Fi. It's pretty decent. I mean, the way it does, but I don't think 3DS. A 3DS isn't. I don't think using the internet anywhere as much as I would imagine that a modern console would be using it. I mean, it's. I don't know what Nintendo's planning in a lot of ways. I would also want to see what their service looks like. What their equivalent of Xbox Live or PSN is. I'd like to see a little bit of a step forward there, because, man, like I said, I didn't buy a Wii U, but DS and 3DS storefront and Wii's were both just terrible to navigate through.
Yeah, I think they've decided they haven't announced it, but I think they're going to switch to a fully integrated account system, as opposed to the tying purchases to hardware. Speaking of purchases for the Switch, what kind of games would you like to see for it?
Nintendo is Zelda and maybe another Bayonetta would be nice. Super Smash Bros. Party games. I like Mario Party 8 or whatever the last one was. Was really disappointing.
Right
10, yeah, 10 was. I got it, and I was so disappointed with it. It didn't feel like a Mario Party game. It felt like a Mario Party mini game. Like, it just didn't work for me. So I'm hoping with the next one it'll be fun. And honestly, Nintendo, like, my Nintendo console is a console I play with my friends when they're over. I don't usually play much PS4, or occasionally I'll play my Xbox 360, but like that's it.
Yeah, so I think party games are where they can do, and local multiplayer is where Nintendo has an advantage over their competitors.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. No one's trying for it.
I guess I'm a little more philosophical or big scheme about it. I would like Nintendo to show a little bit more ambition. I'd like them to announce some stuff that just doesn't seem like Nintendo. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't seem like, of course Nintendo's going to push that out. I'd like them to announce something like, let's say like a Pokemon MMO or something. You know what I mean? Like, imagine that, like, a whole like integrated multiplayer world. You're out there with other people. You're showing that they're really getting that games aren't what they were. There's something new. I mean, if Microsoft or Sony had that Pokemon license, imagine all the stuff you would see that wasn't just confined to a handheld. So I mean, that's what I really want from them is showing that they understand that games are kind of going in different spaces. They're going to embrace the internet. They're going to embrace online. They're going to make it easy to play with your friends and share stuff with them if you want to. And a scope of games that is just beyond the ones we can all list off the top of our heads. We know there's going to be a Zelda. We know there's going to be a Mario. But what else is Nintendo doing kind of out there? Are they going to make a shooter? Are they going to make can they do RTSs on the Switch? Have a little bit more imagination than something that would just be, hey, we're going to turn out the same stuff we always have, and you're buying it because it's Mario.
I mean, speaking of shooters, it's kind of a shame that Microsoft bought out Rare, because I would have loved to see another Perfect Dark.
I look forward to the conversation we're going to have on that pirate game, because that thing looks like a turd. I'm not going to I don't know who's going to buy it, but I hope somebody does, so I can just shit all over it for an episode.
Everybody who plays it says it's fun. Which I just don't get from the footage.
Yeah, exactly. So do you want to be the guy who's in charge of trimming the sail for 2 hours with your party of 4 people? There's a guy steering the ship. There's a guy shooting cannons. I'll sit here and put a sail up and down. You guys go have fun.
The Rare that made Banjo-Kazooie and Perfect Dark is not the Rare that's making
those guys are
those guys have all left to make
now,
Yooka-Laylee, which I'm super looking forward to, by the way. Speaking of what I want to see, like you mentioned in Pokemon MMO, I want to see a fully 3D open world Pokemon. Because now that they're sort of integrating their handheld and their home consoles, we might actually get it. We might actually get, the 3D open world Pokemon that we've been dreaming of since we were, 8 years old.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see something that says like, look, you're playing Pokemon on the size of the Skyrim map. Do you know what I mean? And that
would be incredible.
Yeah,
like,
there's 500 Pokemon out there. Yeah, and there's going to be, maybe they do some stuff with multiplayer. Maybe they have like persistence to it. Of course, so that you're not just going out there and just catching them and turning it off at the end of the night. But yeah, there's so much space there for Nintendo properties to do something cool. I mean, I feel like Metroid is just right there, ready to be the next great multiplayer shooter, right? Like why not Metroid? Why can't everybody be talking about logging on and doing capture the flag in Metroid tonight? It's basically Halo.
Maybe that's what they're experimenting with Federation Force in the 3DS. Because that is multiplayer, right?
I remember Metroid Hunters a while back. Yeah, I don't know if you ever. That was a 3D. Yeah, it was a DS-ish thing that they kind of tried to do something, like a shooter. I mean, there's space for Nintendo to grow, and that's what's gonna get me more interested. But man, yeah, exactly what you're talking about, an open world Pokemon. That would be 100% something I'd be interested in.
So, Admirax, Flaxon, what would get you guys interested in a Switch in terms of games?
Oh God. I think like you guys were saying, I think local multiplayer, because we don't have those anymore. Those don't really exist these days unless you have a Wii. Split
screen's gone. Sad.
Yeah, it really is. And I think there's definitely in a market for having your friends over playing something like Mario Party, because when I go home for Christmas, we have a Wii and we bust it out and we'll play really old versions of Smash Brothers and Mario Kart and what have you. Mm-hmm. So I mean, those are still fun. They just need to kind of realize that market exists, and it's probably not a huge moneymaker, but I think they could make a respectable income on something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that Super Smash Bros. Franchise is such a big seller still for them. Mm-hmm. Because there's clearly a demand for this stuff. It's just nobody seems to be making it or investing in it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. Flaxon, what would you be interested in on a Switch?
See, with gaming, a lot of it comes down to money for me.
Yeah.
Because,
Imagine that the Switch were free and the game's on it. What would you play on it?
It has been so long since I've played any Nintendo games. I think the last time I did was when I had my Nintendo 64.
Oh, wow.
So I am out of touch with what they offer.
That's actually a step up for me. I've never actually owned a Nintendo console. I've only played Nintendo games on friends' consoles.
Oh. I mean, so it's been, the last Zelda games I played were Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. And I always liked playing those. So I haven't played any Zelda games since those. So have they created anything, that's been a worthy follow-up to that?
I don't think so. I honestly, if you could pick the two,
depends on who you talk to. Let's
yeah. I think if you could pick the two, you pick the right two. Honestly, I mean, I think you kind of hit the pinnacle, in my opinion, of it with those two. But yeah, I know that.
Yeah, you can if you get those Zelda games in that kind of hit that sweet spot, then I might turn my head a bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's understandable.
Otherwise.
Speaking of me, I would. You know what I'd really like? Speaking of Nintendo franchises.
Speaking of me. Which no one was doing.
There is a better way to do that.
Nice transition.
Speaking of what I'd be interested in Nintendo franchises, the one that I want to see make a comeback is Donkey Kong, but the 3D Donkey Kong, because he had Tropical Freeze on the Wii U, which is 2D. I want another Donkey Kong 64.
Yeah,
nobody else liked because everybody thought that.
No, man, Donkey Kong 64 was hugely popular. I think you're crazy.
Yeah. Well, apparently nowadays everybody's like, well, that was a collectathon nightmare. Give me the collectathon nightmare. I want to collect all the shit.
I think you could probably levy that charge at every Nintendo game ever, though, right? I mean,
Yeah,
You can say it about Banjo-Kazooie, and that's a classic.
Yeah, so, I mean, Banjo-Kazooie, they've kind of lost the license for that because that's rare. But
now it sucks.
Yeah, that's what I want to see is another Banjo-Kazooie game.
Yeah, that would get me as well.
I don't want to get too hard on a lot of my stances too, but I think that Nintendo has to show kind of as a company in some ways that this console, they're going to be in it for a little bit longer than they have their previous couple. A console generation shouldn't be 3 years anymore. I think, a lot of people are saying, oh, what is Xbox and PlayStation doing with the S's and the Pros and all this other stuff? And it makes sense to me as somebody who's a PC gamer. But when I look at the lifespan for the Wii and the Wii U, those are both ridiculously short. And they came out basically behind the times at the same time that they came out first, which is really weird. For a position for a console to be in. So they're gonna have to show that they're gonna support the Switch a little bit more than they have their other ones, and that they're in it. They're gonna be licensing third parties, and they're gonna be out there giving the same kind of like development assistance that Xbox and PlayStation do.
This time, they're not so focused on the whole second screen experience, so it's going to scare off probably fewer third parties, but I don't think they're ever going to get the level of third party support that Microsoft or Sony has, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a system I want to buy just for Nintendo games, I think is what it comes down to.
It's definitely a system that I think if they can get some of that third party support, they'll get some more skeptics on board. But we'll have to wait and see. We don't really even know much about it yet. They haven't even officially announced if the tablet screen is a touch screen. So there's a lot up in the air.
Is it?
I mean, do we think that people are
still... have all but confirmed it, but Nintendo hasn't officially confirmed it themselves.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the Nintendo Switch. It seems like there's promise there, even if we're a little bit skeptical. Let's move on to the second topic we're going to discuss today, which was our scariest experiences in video games. Since this is the Halloween-themed episode, even though this will probably come out slightly after Halloween, I wanted to discuss a Halloween-related thing. And so I thought I'd ask you guys, what's your scariest experience ever playing a video game? It could be from a scary game, or maybe you played a not-so-scary game in a very scary environment. What are some of your scariest experiences playing video games? Anybody can answer this question.
The first one that comes... I'm still catching up on a lot because there was a period of several years there where I just did not play at all. So I haven't played a lot of scary games. So the first and probably only one that comes to mind is the PT, the playable teaser for that Guillermo del Toro and Kojima did.
Yeah.
I could not make it through that, and I ended up just watching someone on YouTube do a playthrough of that.
Yeah, that is an experience. I'll tell you that. That was one of those, like, I went into it not really knowing, and holy crap, that was a scary. It was short, but man, and then people started to. As people started to dig more into it and find out more stuff, and that the stuff was randomized, and if you did things in certain orders, different things would happen. It was kind of like, you're right, it was scary, but there was also a lot of like dread to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, I do want to see this, but I have to do all these things in this crazy order to go experience it, and I kind of know what's coming, but not really. And wow, yeah, that was an experience. The fact that game's, I guess, kind of not ever getting made, it is a real downer.
Yeah, that really was. That was such a bummer when I found out that it was getting canceled.
Yeah, even worse, you can't actually download PT anymore.
Yeah, I know. I think we still have
Konami.
it.
I wasn't able to play it. I had to watch a playthrough of it.
Oh man. Even the playthroughs are still pretty scary, right? I mean,
it was great. I still loved it, but man, I wish I had a chance to actually play it myself.
Yeah, it was an experience. I'll tell you that. It was something.
Yeah, at one point I was just like, I can't handle this shit. Like.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I try to think about my scariest one when I read the prompt, and for me it was Fatal Frame. which I think does share a lot of kind of some of those things in PT. Where it's like the best way I can describe Fatal Frame to people who are looking for a scary experience, it's like there's something completely scary and gonna freak you out behind that next door, and you're walking in there with like the most inept video game hero ever, but you still have to open that door, like and like the whole game they always kind of tend to like unravel this horrible tale of just the worst stuff imaginable. And you enter each little room, and like you get little snippets of the tale, and the ghosts are very visually like unnerving. And it builds the way it builds on itself as it just gets scarier and scarier and scarier. Even though it's goofy because you're taking a picture of ghosts with a magic camera, but it's a game less built around. There are jump scares, don't get me wrong, but it's less built around being scary as being very creepy and unnerving and just non-stop atmospheric.
Yeah, I think what was great about the Fatal Frame series was that it would do stuff like you'd walk past a doll and like its head would turn to watch you.
And then I'll come get you.
It was just like
really
little unnerving things like that. And of course there were big showpieces of scary things, but I think it was the little details that really made those games great.
I'm recording.
Yeah. So Lutair, what scary experiences have you had playing games?
Let's see. Probably the scariest game I've played would be Amnesia: The Dark Descent.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of scary games. I get like really stressed out from them more than anything. Like I played Dead Space for a while, and I would just like get really annoyed that all of the corpses kept on like coming back, and like there would just be like a few on the ground, and I would just have to stomp them out now because otherwise they're gonna jump at me. But I think Amnesia did a really good job of like working with the mechanics to make you like more scared, because like the monsters themselves look pretty creepy, but you're not supposed to look at them. Like the more you face at them, the more insane you go. And I think that's a brilliant idea, because like the scariest monster is a monster you don't know the form of, really. And I think they did an excellent job with that. And I would my old roommate had a projection screen, and so I'd play it on that with all the room, like all the lights out and everything, and it was like a really tense experience, and I enjoyed it, but then I would have to like go do something fun for a while.
Do not go right to sleep.
There's a couple of games that aren't scary that I had like kind of scary experiences with. Like Halo 1 has a really good moment when they introduce the flood, where you are going down into like this like bunker, and like all of the aliens that you've been fighting so far are running from it, and you're like, what is this going on? And then you come down and
I was gonna say, they introduce it through like video clips, right?
Yeah, and then you see like a helmet of a human soldier. Oh, actually, a little bit before that, one of the soldiers you see, he shoots at you and then shoots himself, and you're like, what is going on? And then you find the helmet of Jenkins, and you go through the clips of them going down into this bunker and like trying to get like the secret weapon, but it's not a weapon. It's this horde of it, like this parasitic alien thing that just starts killing everything. And I think the way they introduced that and it completely changes the way the game works afterwards. And I think that was really well done. Like Halo 1 is an excellent game in a lot of ways, and I think that was a really critical moment that they did very well.
Yeah, and to build on that point, you say it actually changes the way the game plays. Like usually what's really effective against the enemies you've been fighting thus far is the alien weaponry, the energy weapons. Those are really terrible against the Flood. So what you've been doing the entire game is discarding your stupid human rifles for the plasma weapons. Yeah. And now you have to fight the Flood, and you have no human weapons on you, and suddenly you're scrambling to get rifles and shotguns to fight these guys off.
Yeah, and you're also fighting things in 2s and 3s, usually at a longer range, and then the Flood just completely flips that. It's like, no, we're sending all this stuff right in your face now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was really well done.
Really gets you to shift the way you play. Mm-hmm. So, Admirax, you mentioned that. What did you mention did you mention a scary experience you've had playing a game, or?
Well, I was going to talk about Fatal Frame. I wasn't expecting that to come up. So no, I'm pleasantly surprised because I thought that was just something that I played in high school, and I was the only one that knew about it. But I'm trying to think of other scary games. I love horror games.
Oh, that's good. You have plenty to talk about.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I find that I don't really get scared by them anymore, which is a shame because I enjoy being frightened. But I think, that we have the Silent Hill games, and obviously those are, meant to be scary. But I think a moment that stood out to me was in Alan Wake, when you're in one of the cabins. I can't remember what specifically happened because it's been a long time since I played that. But you're looking at a TV, and there's like it's not a video game. It's not a graphic image. It's like a film that they had taken of a human actor. Like I think it was the actor who played Alan Wake. I can't remember his name, but it was like he was looking back at you through this television screen. And there was just something very unnerving about seeing an actual human being in this video game world.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of broke the fourth wall in a weird way.
If you guys have ever played Mass Effect, there's a few moments when you start to find out about like the giant cosmic horror type alien ships that kill people.
The Reapers?
Yeah, the Reapers, and you go through like this flash of information that the previous alien species is trying to tell you, and I noticed that they use like live action clips of like creepy stuff. And that really made it feel like surreal. And I thought like it's interesting when they use things that you're not used to seeing in video games, because it would sort of not work a lot of the times in video games to make it not work for your brain. Like I think that's really cool.
Like like using live action footage has the danger of coming off as very, very silly, but I think the games that use it very sparingly, in a horror setting, I think it's a very effective little tactic.
Yeah, that seems like something. It's something that seems like it doesn't fit, and seeing things that aren't really compatible with the world you're situated in, tend to induce feelings of fear.
Yeah,
I think it depends. Everybody's got their own little thing too. Like for me, I was thinking about Skyrim. Like I've got a fear of spiders, and there's something about the spiders of Skyrim that just creeps me out. Like they're just lifelike enough, but not really. They're these giant spiders and stuff. So that's always like my thing. Whenever I start to hear that little skittering noise, like it's like a trigger. So yeah, I'm always like, oh man. I always like cast an invisibility spell or something real quick and just start looking above me like an idiot. But yeah, so I think everybody's got their own little things in games, even in horror games that are designed to kind of creep you out or scare you even more. The other one I was going to mention, I don't know if anybody played this. I think I've probably talked about it more than it maybe even deserves. Has anybody ever played The Suffering?
Mm-mm.
No, I haven't actually even heard of this.
So it was an FPS that came out a while ago, and a long time ago. And what it is you are a prisoner who's been maybe or maybe not wrongly convicted. So it kind of stays a little bit ambiguous there. As far as I remember, I played this game probably 10 years ago. But you've got this voice inside your head, and it's kind of like deforming you. And it's telling you to more or less go kill everybody. And it's tempered with you telling that voice, no, I'm not gonna, I'm a good person. And then more or less demons like start popping out of the prison everywhere, and they're all shaped on and based on different forms of execution. So like one of the demons is like the lethal injection demon, and it like walks on like 4 needles, like a
wow.
very spider like. So they're all very creepy and very different. Like one's like kind of like a guillotine, and it's got like all these blades, and it's you more or less fighting your way through this prison of demons. And the way it does it, I don't want to spoil it because there's a chance if anybody ever wants to play it does have some good twists and stuff to it. It is corny. The voice acting's not great, but playing it on a headset with that voice actually in your ears telling you, yes, keep killing them all or whatever, with the uncertainty of whether you're actually killing real people or demons or is your guy just freaking out. It was a really scary experience from start to finish, and it's one that I kind of had to take, like I think it was Lutair was saying earlier, you kind of had to unplug from it every now and then and be like, okay, time to go watch some cat videos or something.
Yeah.
So it's interesting you mentioned that it's really effective when it whispers in your ear to go around killing everyone. Sound design is a big part of what makes games scary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Especially when they use stereo and there's something you hear in one ear and then in the other ear. When it makes it sound like the sound is coming from different parts of the game or different locations, that's really effective. And it's something that's often overlooked in making games. So what I want to mention is something that's not from a particularly scary game. But I want to mention that there's a moment in the first Deus Ex game that to me is still probably the scariest moment I've ever had in gaming. So I'm going to spoil Deus Ex, which is 15 years old now, so I think I can spoil it.
Should be fine.
So what happens is you're working for this UN organization called UNATCO throughout the first third or so of the game. And then UNATCO betrays you, and you end up in a secret Majestic 12 facility. In fact, before they betray you, you get killed. And when you get killed, you think, okay, game over, I have to reload. In fact, you don't get a game over and you don't have to reload. You wake up in this prison, in this secret facility run by this clandestine organization called Majestic 12. You wake up in a prison cell with none of your gear and no resources whatsoever. So you have to get all your gear back and escape from this prison. So it's deeply unsettling in a lot of ways. The first way it's deeply unsettling is that it challenges your entire belief structure about the game, because up until shortly before the betrayal, you have no reason to believe that UNATCO is anything but an upstanding organization. Second of all, when you finally escape from this secret underground facility, turns out it was connected to the UNATCO headquarters the entire time. And that was one of the scariest moments for me in gaming, realizing that the prison I was in was through this door that I'd just passed by a dozen times.
Oh.
Yeah. And
Deus Ex does a lot of that, like really kind of subtle stuff that I probably experienced that and then didn't even register to me until you just brought that up.
Yeah. Deus Ex franchise as a whole, barring Invisible War, which we never talk about for good reason. That franchise has really excellent level design, where things that you think are pointless or really weird make sense like 15 hours later in the game. And that to me is evidence that they're really thinking through the way that the level design makes the player feel. Another one I wanted to mention, and this is actually a free game. It's a short 15-minute interactive game called Red Amazon. You can download it from GameJolt. And this game is peculiar because very minimalist. The background's mostly white. You're in a forest with a bunch of trees, and the trees are all very geometric. There's a cabin. And everything's very low poly, very low fi. But because it's so minimalist, it's very good at creating fear and dread and tension. Because essentially all you do in this game is wander around the forest from your cabin and then walk back to your cabin, and then something happens that I won't spoil.
Wait, what game did you say this was again?
Red Amazon.
Okay, I'm confused. Sorry.
Yeah, it's really neat in that it manages to make you feel really scared and tense without ever actually doing all that much. Just with some clever sound design and a very minimalist atmosphere and putting you in a very isolated setting, it can create feelings that you wouldn't normally feel if you were in, say, a busier setting with more people or in a setting that had more detail. Like when you go wandering through the forest in, I don't know, Skyrim or Dragon Age, you don't really feel scared. But in this game, it's a different feeling altogether.
I interrupted because your description reminded me a lot of Firewatch.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. A lot of the same feelings as Firewatch.
Yeah.
The reason Firewatch is a little different in that you always have that voice on the other end of the walkie-talkie. And it's sort of like this reassuring anchor. So imagine Firewatch without that anchor.
Well, the voice is reassuring until you're not even sure who to trust anymore. Then
Yeah, Firewatch does spiral. I know what you're talking about. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it becomes very unnerving and it kind of allows paranoia to set in after a while.
It's a very slow build, like you're saying. Like by the time it gets to the point where it's creepy, you're like, oh wow, it's been this way for a little bit. And I just have been kind of numb to it, I guess. Have you guys, any of you guys played The Gods Are Watching? It's kind of like a pared down experience where you play the survivors of and this is very 8-bit looking. Don't think of this as like something amazing. I think it had a release on Steam that might have gotten it a little better looking, but basically you're 6 or 7 survivors on a crash ship. Like on a distant planet or something like that, and there's like a robot, a doctor, the captain, a soldier, like people like that. And each day you've got to decide, do you hunt for food? Do you let people sleep? Do you set a watch? Do you not set a watch? Do you try to repair the radio so you can contact help or whatever? And it starts slow, but it's like Firewatch and like Red Amazon, what you were describing. It starts to spiral, right? Like people get sick, people get injured. You have to make hard decisions. Do you leave people behind? Do you eat them? Do you kill them? Do you send the robot out because he doesn't get tired? But if you lose him, he's the only one who can repair certain things. Or it's a very like a slow build. I think what we've all kind of talked about with a lot of games is it's that idea that as dread builds, it makes it more scarier than just a bunch of pop out stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. The jump scares are cheap unless they're earned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when I was thinking about this, almost all my games, I was thinking, a lot of the classic horror games don't really do as much for me. I guess maybe except for Fatal Frame, but a lot of the classics, Resident Evils and stuff like that, I've just never really found hit as hard because they don't really stick you in that world where you feel out of control. Does that make sense? Like if you're a good enough player, no game is going to get that scary. But in a lot of games where they take some of that control away from you or make you question what you're even doing or why you're doing it, I think there's some stuff there that they can do to really kind of work with that idea that in an uncertain area that you can kind of work the fear in there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we didn't really. I mean, we talked about Dead Space a little bit earlier, but none of us cited it as an example of a particularly scary game.
Yeah,
and that's because Dead Space. I mean, it does have some effective moments, but for the most part, the alien threat is more annoying than anything at a certain point, because you know exactly what it's like. Eventually, you can anticipate when the game is going to try to shock you.
Yeah.
So you can mentally
you see
prepare
the vent, or you see, the best way I can describe the scares in Dead Space to me, it's like a jump scare in a scary movie where it's always the cat, or you know what I mean? Like it's very rarely the killer. It's always like it's a jump scare where it's the cat every single time. You're like, oh, another one of these stupid things, and you by the time you start to get
be careful with that analogy, because in this analogy you're just shooting the cat over and over.
You just stomp on the cat so it doesn't scare you.
But I mean, you upgrade to the point where by the time the aliens are an actual threat to you, you can kill them usually in 1 or 2 shots, and there's plenty, the ammo can be an issue, but still, I mean, it's never. Yeah.
They do introduce one monster that's like, sort of unkillable. You have to like end up freezing him in the first time you encounter him. But like I remember playing that and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm just going to run around in circles around this table cuz he keeps jumping one direction." Like I was having fun with him. It wasn't scary.
You're toying with him almost.
Cuz they really pitched that whole dismemberment thing as something to make the game more difficult, right? Like, "Oh, you no longer have to just aim for the head. You have to, And then I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. But then in practice, it's like, oh, well, these things are 10 feet of arms and legs. I basically. Yeah. And then you give me a gun that shoots in a straight line. Like I can.
In practice, it's also some guy on a radio yelling at you, "Shoot at Slims, Isaac! Shoot at Slims!" over and over again. So I actually had a scarier experience with Dead Space than I otherwise would have had, because for about 60% of the game, I didn't realize you could press E to open crates and get supplies. So I was running around with way less ammo than I could have had.
That's just like true survival horror to you. You're like, oh my god, what am I supposed to do? It was like
straight up true survival horror. So I accidentally pressed E in front of a crate and I got some ammo. I was like, wait, I could have been doing this the whole time.
Man, this game is so hard.
Oh my god, this game is incredibly difficult.
So as an admitted, Bethesda fanboy, I gotta say I do love when every now and then Bethesda will take the time to put in a true like mini quest in that's a horror themed one.
Yeah.
For example, the Dunwich Horror Building or the Dunwich Borers Building.
With that giant, what are they called?
Deathclaw?
The giant Deathclaw.
Yeah, like that obelisk at the bottom, and you find like a weird book, and you read all these like. Yeah, I love when like it's almost like they let their inner instincts or their inner kid or whatever go on some of those missions. Like there's that one where there's the cannibals in Fallout. You stumble across the house.
Oh yeah, the very Pleasantville kind of 50s.
They had cannibals in Skyrim too, I think.
Yeah, they did. And
they were like their cannibals.
Skyrim also, or maybe it was Skyrim, I'm pretty sure it was Skyrim, had that one village that when you get there, there's like basically just like one innkeeper, and you're like, hey, where's the rest of the village? He's like, what are you talking about? And you like start to dig, and there's like a very like Lovecraftian cult thing going down under the city. And I think you're sent there to rescue one of the, I can't remember what the lizard people are called, and I should remember that.
Argonian?
Yeah, like there's like an Argonian girl who goes missing, and like this cult is gonna sacrifice her, and you have to like go down all these crazy tunnels under the town, and there's some like I said, Lovecraft stuff going on with the town sacrificing her to appease some dark old one or whatever. I just love when they kind of let that stuff seep into the Skyrim or Fallout world.
I think that's something that like a lot of people don't think about for Morrowind. It had a lot of actually pretty scary moments, or at least like just really disorienting. Like I know about halfway through the main quest, you start finding out about this sort of fifth house and how people are like sleepers. And I remember going back to like Balmora or something, and like just this random townsfolk who I'd passed by before just goes up to you and starts talking to you as a representative of this sort of cult, and you're like, how many other people are there?
I remember the first, the Ascended Sleeper. Is that what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And like the first time you see one, you're like, what the hell is that? Like, and then it's slowly like you're like, oh, and then like because you've been hearing about them for a long time, and you finally see one, and they don't look like anything you've seen in Morrowind ever. No. And yeah, it is very freaky. Do you remember that Insane Asylum in Morrowind 2?
Which part? I don't know if I remember. It's been a long time.
They're infected.
Oh, yeah.
That was a really, really good one too.
Oh my god, with like the one guy who's like half spider, like robot.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Morrowind's a good one for creepiness. It's
robots in Morrowind now. Wow.
Morrowind gave me a recurring nightmare, but that was just Slaughterfish. Slaughterfish are a recurring nightmare. I'm a fear of video game water now.
You know why Slaughterfish are probably a good recurring nightmare? Because like even in the game, like you hit them and like nothing happens. Like when you have those dreams, like you try to punch something and it's like, oh, I don't remember how to punch. What's going on? And like that's like real world Slaughterfish.
Speaking of horror games, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Is Until Dawn worth playing?
I haven't played it, but I have watched the Let's Plays and read a lot about it, and I have pretty much the same question. It looks to me like a lot of people got bored with it once they kind of started to figure out the formulas, and I don't know though. I wish I knew somebody who did play it so they could fill me in on that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I have the same question.
Yeah,
Is that the one with the serial killer going and killing? What is that one again?
Yeah,
It has
it's like
Brett Dalton and I think Rami Malek's in it.
Hayden Panettiere. I know that.
Yeah, it looks like basically a gore fest, but I I didn't know if it was worth the time or not.
I know
Yeah.
that the whole thing about it. This is what kind of drove me back on it. Is that there is like a rigorous autosave that literally like is saving like to the second, and then the gameplay is focused around QuickTime events. And once you put that combination together, to me, I'm not going to be able to get over that. Honestly, I'm just not going to be able. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because QuickTime events already are a dumb system, and I feel like they unfairly punish you. And then once you combine that with an autosave, I mean, I'm kind of out. You know, I know that's a big what is it? Quantum Dreams.
Quantic Dreams.
Quantic Dreams, yeah. I know that's one of their big things, like with Heavy Rain and things like that. But you can't have both to me in a game and keep my interest. So once I started to hear that, I was out. But that's why I kind of look towards watching people who are, I guess, twitchier than me play through it on Let's Plays. It looks fun enough, but yeah,
Just
that's
to be
gonna.
clear, Until Dawn is a Supermassive game.
Oh, is
But
it?
it's similar to.
Yeah. I just meant
Yeah.
like the QuickTime plus the autosave, where if you fail the
Similar
QuickTime, you can't reload and go back and like, okay, I know I push A here. You know, you screwed up brushing your teeth, and now your son's gonna go get murdered by a serial killer.
I wonder if there's a
That's
mod
also-
you can make for games like that to like get you to not have autos, like have regular style saving.
Yeah, there is. I know on PC.
Oh.
I think it's PS4 only, but I know there are workarounds on the PC. One of the big ones is through Cheat Engine. I use Cheat Engine a lot, and you can kind of more or less do like an emulator thing where you freeze certain values. So a lot of people will do that and freeze certain states. And the problem is, in some of these games, it'll bug the crap out of the game. Like if a character in the game's mind is dead, but in your game is alive, sometimes it'll mess stuff up. What a lot of people do instead with a lot of QuickTime events is there are things you can do so that the QuickTime event is always push A. You know, like it just push A over and over. And over.
That would
I've
help
seen-
for Indigo Prophecy.
Oh God, yes, yeah. That's why I think it's one of those games, maybe that or that I think I saw that for, where the QuickTime event is always push A or push Q or whatever.
I ended up giving up on that game when I died because I drank alcohol and mixed because I'd taken my medication and I drank some alcohol, and then the game was like, well, you shouldn't mix pills and alcohol, so you're dead.
Should have read the label on the medicine you were
I don't even
eating.
drink in real life, but I get punished for drinking in a game.
It's a good life lesson.
Yeah, the life lesson is drink in the real world, apparently. Yeah, so that can be super frustrating when you like playing these games that are all like quick time events and shit. Yeah. So, are there any other scary games you guys wanted to mention?
Well, you guys were talking about Bethesda, and it made me remember the New Vegas extension, Dead Money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that one was that one had some very scary ideas, like the ghost people that are following you around. They're human beings that have kind of been reanimated because their suit it's like some kind of a mech suit that just keeps them alive, but they're dead in there. I think it was great. It had so many horrifying ideas like that.
The gas stuff too, right? That's the one with the gas? Yeah. That was also a really good idea because nothing's really like, for example, by that time, if you play Dead Money after you finish the game, nothing in that game's really scary, right? You can kill everything in 2 VATS hits, but that gas added a really cool layer of kind of hitting a reset button on everything and putting you back to where you were. But yeah, I really did enjoy that expansion.
I liked the atmosphere because it was so different than the rest of the game had been up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Speaking of things that were very different from the game they're in, we mentioned in mental asylums earlier. The mental hospital level from the Thief reboot was actually one of the scariest levels I've played.
You're the guy
who
played that one.
I am the only person who played that game, and it should probably stay that way because the rest of that game is awful. That's the mental hospital level in that game is literally the only good level in that game. Everything else about that game is just the worst. But that game is really effective because there are basically no enemies for most of it. You're just navigating through an abandoned mental hospital, hearing voices, and trying to make your way through the maze of locked doors while things are rattling in the background very scarily. And that turned out to be the most effective level in the entire game. Which just goes to show you that sometimes deviating from the formula is unsettling enough that it becomes scary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've
got one more. Okay, I just want to talk about.
Let's hear it.
Okay. Anybody play Vampire the Masquerade? Bloodlines?
No.
Way too many subtitles.
What subtitle does the game really need?
So, generally I would say that for a vampire game, it's not that scary, in general ways. Again, you're kind of an ultimate badass and vampire, and there's a lot more talking than you would expect in a vampire game. It's a very RPG heavy game. There is one area called the Ocean House Hotel that is absolutely terrifying because even as a vampire, you can't kill ghosts. And it's a very slow build, Shining style murder in a hotel type situation. Very, as you go through rooms, the angry spirits are moving things and throwing things. I think a wife and 2 kids were murdered. And you find all about this as you go through the area, and you read newspaper articles about what happened in this hotel. As you go through, and there's all these very scary things that happen in each room, and you read through the diaries and stuff like that. But the room-to-room, movements within each area as the quest kind of unfolds, is very, very scary. When you mentioned the asylum, that's one thing that kind of reminded me about it. But it's a scary subsection in a game that otherwise I didn't think honestly was too scary of a game.
Yeah, I feel like when you make a game that's sort of based around a scary theme, like that's not explicitly trying to be a horror game, you sort of become used to what would be unsettling in another more normal game.
Right.
Like there's this other game which again is not very good, so don't go out and play it. Murdered Soul Suspect, where you're playing as a ghost.
Yeah. You're the other guy who played that.
Yeah. I play a lot of games that I power through a lot of terrible games. Yeah, I wasted 20 hours of my life on Thief. Don't do that. So Murdered Soul Suspect, otherwise not a great game, but one thing it does really well is it makes you used to being a ghost almost immediately. So it's not something that you're terribly unsettled by. But then later in the game, they introduce some scarier elements, and they introduce limitations to your powers as a ghost. And that's when the game sort of ratchets up the tension. So it's almost like games when they the way they create fear is by giving you a reference point for what's normal, and then deviating from that reference point in a way that you didn't expect. And that seems to be what generates fear. It's what you don't expect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like when we were talking about earlier with Halo, when with each game you kind of operate within that game's world rules. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of okay. Well, this is what this game is going to do, and when they throw you that curve in a lot of ways, that's when you really start to feel like okay, you feel like unsettled almost. Like, am I going to have to fight these guys forever? I don't have these. I don't really know how to fight them. What are they? When a game kind of pulls the foundation out from under you, I think that's a really smart move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when the game sort of breaks its own rules, that can be really effective. I mean, there's a flip side of that, like breaking it when a game breaks its own rules all the time, and then you just sort of get annoyed. The best example I can think of for that is Antichamber, which a lot of people really liked as a puzzle game, but I did not like because I felt it was just breaking its own rules over and over and over again. But Lutair, you sounded like you had an example there.
I can't think of the name. Was it Eternal Darkness?
Yeah,
where you're slowly going insane.
Yeah.
And then like at some point it like pretends to turn off your TV or your game system.
Yeah.
And like it's super meta, but also still like disorienting and unnerving.
Yeah, the sanity meter, I think, is what you're talking about in that game.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was a really, really good example. I think another game that messed with that was what was the
Arkham Asylum did it.
yeah, but
Yeah.
there was what was that
it did it with
Cthulhu game?
It did it where it makes you think that your graphics card has screwed up because the screen
the
goes
fear
green for a
gas.
second.
Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth. That's the name of it. That also had kind of a sanity thing that, as you would fight more and more crazy Lovecraft nightmares, you would slowly go more and more insane. So I really like stuff like that. But I think Eternal Darkness did so many cool things with, like you were saying. I think it acted like your memory card was wiped when you went to go load up the game. Stuff like that. I mean, really just like surprising things. Like, do you guys remember of course, the famous thing in Metal Gear where you unplug the controller to fight Psycho Mantis?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it was a lot of little things like that. But I think Eternal Darkness did it in a really cool way. And I know there'll never be a sequel because, God, I don't know if you guys have followed that Nightmare of a Studio at all.
Oh, is that Silicon Knights?
Yes.
What happened?
Well, Eternal Darkness was made by Silicon Knights, which had lost a lawsuit, had to pull a game off the shelves for improperly using assets from the Unreal Engine. And Dennis Dyack is a complete maniac. They tried to kickstart a sequel to Eternal Darkness, and I guess like his wife was going to be like the creative director, and all these people came. I'm just kind of half remembering some of this, but and people were like, apparently like everybody who's ever worked with her is like, she is like an HR nightmare. Like, she just very vulgar, harasses people, stuff like that. And yeah, it was a crazy story. But I think the Kickstarter ended up getting pulled down from Kickstarter. You can follow up that whole scary tale on your own.
We'll put it in the link note. Yeah. So this was a nice discussion of scary games and stuff. I think this was interesting and productive. You're laughing at the fact that we were productive. We're really productive. So I think it's time to call us to a close. Thank you all for joining me on this spooky journey. If you'd like to keep up to date with the podcast, you can follow us on Tumblr at avocadogamescast.tumblr.com, where we post each episode along with a link dump that fact checks all of our blathering, because we mistakenly lie a lot.
We do?
Well, maybe you have
do.
only told the truth ever in your life, in which case, congratulations.
No, I purposefully lie.
You've been misleading us the whole time. You're not really Flaxon Jackson, are you?
Spooky.
I know, that is spooky. So thank you all for joining me, and we'll see you next time.
Wah, ha, ha, ha.